Before we start explaining how the YRV plan works, what it is, and what we need to do, we need to make one thing clear: we are talking about the USA specifically and how to repair its government. Although the YRV step-by-step plan can be adapted to other governments of the world very easily, that is and will be the choice of their citizens. And should other countries, like what we are doing, we can extend the use of the YRV plan to their countries, and or offer assistance in building the YRV plan in their countries.
To start our overview of the YRV plan, we need to start with a little information about America, and what took place to lead us into the mess we are in now concerning our governments and corporations that are seemingly above the law and out of control. We would like to start by telling you that in America, way back when it was first formed, the citizens had no way possible to have direct control over the government, because there was no telephones or TVs. Every bit of information needed to be sent on paper, mail, sent on horseback, using riders that sometimes never even survived the trip to Washington. Because of this, it was impossible for average citizens not working for the government to be organized enough to control the voting system. With that, the citizens allowed the officials of government to build our free government voting system.
This was to allow all the citizens to vote on all its government officials to be elected, and to allow the citizens to vote on all our laws governing our land, and all the laws that govern the citizens. Because there was no telephones and all communication was in letter form, sent by men on horses, the government was forced to set up voting system, and the government was forced to set up something called the Electoral College, a necessity back in its day. But in today's world of instant communication worldwide, by way of the internet and mobile phone services, the Electoral College is now a dinosaur that allows major corruption to take root in our government. If you do not know what the Electoral College is, or how it works, there will be a link provided in the description of this video that will show you everything you need to know about how the Electoral College works, and how it is now unfair to the citizens and allows major corruption to take root in our government.
At first the USA was strong and just, and the government was working for you the citizens. But as time went by, inventions of the telephone, and later the invention of the television allowing communication to become almost instant from east to west coast, brought about a whole new problem that would slowly take root in the citizens' day-to-day lives. An ever-growing corruption of the American government. Thanks to the invention of TVs, radios, and telephones, our government started using the newfound technologies to get information on government elections and laws to the citizen voters, using the speed and ease of the new technologies.
Here is where our problems began. All our problems first started because the government started using TVs, radios, and telephones to provide information to the citizens. For their elections, they now needed to pay the owners of the TV stations, radio stations, and telephone companies to get their candidate election information to the voting public as quick as possible to get more votes. This was a small price to pay, to have an advantage over other candidates that was stuck in their old ways of sending print to newspapers and actually visiting the states to talk to real voters. This newfound way to pay to reach the voters would lead to corporations that seek profits. They raised their prices every single election year that passed, until the candidates for your government could no longer afford to pay out of their pockets for the TV stations, radio stations, and telephone companies in their campaigns to become elected as an official of your government.
Forcing the U.S. government candidates to start fundraising, asking for donation by their supporters to help pay for their elections. It did not take long before big businesses learned that they could buy favors from our government politicians seeking to get elected by offering large sums of money to fund their campaigns. This practice became so out of control, the citizens of the USA hailed protests and demanded regulations on the amount of money a big business or corporation could donate to a governmental candidate. With the birth of the internet, the corporations found new ways to bypass and find loopholes in the laws. This allowed them to once again offer government officials almost unlimited funding for their election campaigns, both in favor of their candidate and against their candidate's opponents.
As the internet grew, and the corporations became larger, and more powerful, and more greedy, seeking more profits, A few citizens formed lobbyist groups and started raising funds to hold back a lot of the power being given to the super corporations. The super corporations called them tree huggers. The corporations started banding together to make it impossible for tree hugger-backed politicians to become elected. This led to the super mega corporations, corporations that have become too big to fail, controlling such a large portion of the American economy. Should they fail, they would destroy the American economy. Example: the banking industry, that through their greed destroyed the American economy, drove their super mega corporations to the point of bankruptcy, forcing the government to bail them out with the taxpayers' money. As proof this was an intentional act, I will remind you that they gave their CEOs mega bonuses with the bailout money.
If it was not for a whistleblower, you the citizens would have never known, but they got away with this anyway because they are too big to fail, and that makes them above the law. The reason for all this is because the corporations found out a while back that if they backed not just one candidate or party but rather both candidates or parties, they could guarantee a win for them no matter who got elected, and if there was a strong candidate with a lot of money they would just simply outspend them, or call in favors of some of their lower-level candidates in charge of voter polls to mysteriously cause a malfunction in key districts that will tilt the outcome of the elections in favor of their candidates, or tell, or pay off news media broadcasters to not provide information to the voters about the opposition candidate. A good example of this is Ron Paul's run for presidency. Even though I personally would not have voted for him anyway, this is just wrong.
You may ask, why would the super corporations spend so much money to elect government officials? The answer is quite simple. By funding government officials, it allows them to have control over in-house government votes on bills or laws that will directly affect their profits, such as tax laws, regulations of their environmental waste, and funding their elections also give them the ability to be first in line for government contracts, giving them an unfair advantage over everyone else bidding for government contracts, in some cases allowing them to open whole new corporations, or get and secure contracts that bill the government and the taxpayers 100 times the amount of money bid by hundreds of other contractors bidding for the same government contract.
Because of the sheer amount of corruption that has taken root in the government by the heads of super corporations, or politicians that have made it possible for them to vote for their own pay raises out of sheer greed, even if they have run their department into the ground and on the verge of bankruptcy, then simply voting to steal money out of other funds like our social security funds and public education funds, simply to hide their crimes, and even use their position in the government to start their own super corporations by using insider information as elected officials or taking jobs working as CEOs of mega corporations as a bribe to set them up for life after their term in office, provided by corporations, by their giving the mega corporations everything they want while in office, and allowing for mega profits and the power to dictate absolute control over a large portion of the U.S. government.
Giving them the ability to use the government of the USA to dictate world markets, allowing for mega profits by way of mega monopolies. Proof of this is easy to find and see. One good example of this is President Obama spending $2,500,000,000 to get elected to an office that only pays $100,000 a year, plus expenses. So what is the solution to eliminating 99% of the corruption you see in your government today, thanks to the outdated Electoral College and government-ran, outdated election process? Simple. We as citizens of the United States of America need to take the voting system completely out of the hands and control of our government and its corrupted politicians and officials that are all heads of or funded by the super mega corporations. We the citizens need to use the internet and the cheap instant communication it provides us to give all the citizens of the USA, for the first time in America's history, the ability to control in a totally fair and unbiased manner the American election process. This is the only way the citizens will ever actually be in charge of the election process and its government.
Is it even possible to separate the voting system from the government, and will they even allow you to do this? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. But We must set up the whole system in advance, work out any bugs, and prove all our voters are properly and legally registered to the same standard the government currently uses in its registration process. And the government must be allowed access to the new voter system to confirm the validity of all the voter registrations and the voting process, for their safety and for your safety. Note: for the safety of the citizens and our government, there must be a set of checks and balances set in place that will never allow a single person or group of individuals to take control or cheat the voting system. That is where the
YRV, Your Rights Volunteer, plan comes into play. The YRV is a step-by-step plan to separate the election process from the government and put it in the hands of the citizens, under the control of the citizens, that will make all this possible, make your vote count more so than in the current system and a whole lot more. We will explain this in our next video. You may be asking yourself right about now, how will separating the voting process from government control and putting it in the hands of the citizens eliminate the control of the mega corporations over our government, or eliminate the trillions of tax-deductible dollars spent by all the special interest groups to elect/bribe/control all our politicians? We, the new anonymous, say. Watch our next video and we will tell you.